Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'll be doing my part 2 of my vlog for S-Book or Ship of Theseus. Part 1 was me talking about the text in Ship of Theseus, the typed words, the printed words in the book. Part 2 is going to be me covering the discussion in the margins. I'll flip through some of the pages so you can see what the book looks like and how it's set up. There's what would look like a regular book, and then there are comments in the margins, and there are inserts throughout this book. So I am going to look through those comments. They're done in 4 general kind of waves, which are kind of set up by the color of the ink. The first wave is black and blue, black all caps, blue cursive. The next set of margin comments is green and red, although it looks like green and orange. The third set is purple and red, and the fourth set is black and black. The handwriting stays the same, the colors change, and at the beginning of each section, I will include the color pairing for the 2 students. What I did with this vlog is I essentially read the book over and over and over again. I didn't read the text again, but I started with one color pairing for the margin comments, went all the way to the end of the book, started with the next color, went all the way to the end of the book, went on to the third set, went all the way to the end of the book, and then the fourth set went all the way to the end of the book. And you'll kind of see how that was set up in each section. I did use, there was a website that is helpful in talking about where things should go in this book if the inserts drop out. So I am including that in the description area. And I also used a blog that talked about how to read this book, how to read the comments specifically, and the coloring for the ink pairing. So I will include a link to that blog too, so you can just see where I got that information, and that's the way I chose to read this part for part 2 of the vlog for S-Book and for Ship of Theseus. I'm gonna flip through the book. This is actually that piece of this vlog is the same flipping through that I did for part 1. So if you've already seen part 1 and you don't want to just see me flipping through the book and showing you examples of how the book was done, then you can skip that part. And each of the sections will start with a label of the color pairing for the ink for the margin comments. So you can kind of follow along. Thanks. Bye. S-Book, Ship of Theseus. This is what it came in, a slipcase. It had a seal on it, which I ripped. J.J. Abrams, I think, thought this up. It was written by Doug Dorst. It's cool slipcover. It's a light one. This is designed to look like a library book because that's where the interaction's going on. In a library at a university. The interaction is between a graduate student and an undergrad student. Part 1 of the vlog is just the text in this book, and part 2 is the interaction between those students. So you can see there's a lot of like little features here. It looks dirty for loan stamp, and you have pages that look aged and these notes and different, it looks like pencil and different colors pen and different handwriting. You'll see there's different colors. Those colors are important, and there's also things inserted. So this is like a copy of a newspaper article. These are things that the students insert in here as they converse back and forth about what happened with VM Straka, the fictional author, and what they're discovering about the book. So you read through this and you get to these different, here's a letter, and it's amazing how much care was put into these things. I mean, they each mean something. I don't know what they mean yet. This is actual napkin material, and it's from the book. It's just, I can't imagine what it costs to build this, make this. There's a card inside here. It has an obituary. So it's layered and layered, and an old photograph. The way I'm reading it, I read the text of the book. That's part 1. Part 2 is reading the margins and what's included in here, these different postcards or letters or copies. And what I've read is that one of the ways you can read this is, let's see, look, that's, you kind of have an idea of when this was being checked out. Checked out from a high school, but then kept by this guy who is working on this at a university library. The way I've read that you can read it and the way I've chosen to read it is there's different color inks in here, and those different colors are used at different times that these two students are interacting. So the first set of communication back and forth are the dark blue and the black. That's the female, that's the male. I think she's Jen and he's Eric maybe. And then other colors come later. So what I'm going to do, and this is happening in part 2, is I'm going to read through the book, the comments in the margins by the color. I'll hit the first time they ever wrote to each other all the way through, and then I'll go back and cover the next round of comments back and forth. And sometimes they refer back to old comments, sometimes they're brand new, but it lets you see kind of the evolution of their relationship, which is a second story. It's not just about Ship of Theseus, it's also about their relationship together and what they're discovering about VM Straka. The book's amazing. It is, the kind of detail that went into building this kind of book is something else. It is difficult to read because I don't want to get fingerprints on it or get it messy, and I don't want things falling out of the book while I'm reading it, so I really can't hold it the same way I usually do. But it's been well worth the read. So I'm currently on the first set of dialogue in the margins. This is the blue cursive and the black all caps script. This is what I know so far. I'm not done yet. I'm about, I think, probably almost 300 pages in. Again, because I've already read the text from Ship of Theseus. So I'm reading the first round of comments in the margins. Then I'm going to go back to the beginning and read the next color set and just keep doing that. I think the color set I'm on, the black and the blue, I think is probably the longest, the most frequently used color combination. So I think that's going to be the longest part, which is why it's taking me so long. Also, I said this in part 1 of the vlog, that it's hard to read this because I don't want to get it messy. It also has all these inserts, and the inserts can fall out, and I don't want that to happen too often. So I can't lay back and read it holding it above me. There's only a few comfortable ways to read this book. And also I want to keep it clean. So there's some situations I'm trying to avoid with it. But here's where I am with it. And I should preface this with even though I'm going with the black and the blue ink, it doesn't necessarily mean that the comments go in the order that I'm reading them. I'm reading them from left to right, front to back of the book. But there are times where one of the individuals probably wrote ahead and then the other individual responded to that. So it's not like they went page 1 and responded, went on to page 2, responded to that. They probably jumped around, even within the colors of the ink. But you kind of have to put it together while you're reading it. So here's what we have. We have 2 students. It starts off, and we eventually know their names, not initially, but I'll just give them away anyway. There's a graduate student who was expunged from the school's records, and that's Eric. He goes by Eric. And there's an undergraduate student who is focusing on, I think, public relations or marketing, and her name is Jennifer. She goes by Jen. Jen is working in the school library, and she sees somebody leave really quickly. and she finds that he left some of his stuff behind, including this library copy, not their library though, it's from high school, a library copy of the Ship of Theseus that he's annotated with, I think, pencil. So she writes a little note in there, hey, I saw that you left this behind. It seemed important. Here it is. And he responds. And they have this back and forth throughout the book, like basically the second book, the S book. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out what's really behind the S book, what's behind the Ship of Theseus. They know that the name of the author is V.M. Straka, but they don't know who that actually is, and they think it could be a pen name. There's a lot of candidates for who could be Straka. The book was written and based off of things that happened in the early 1900s, and then it was published in 1949, and this is probably occurring, this back and forth in the margins, I think maybe around 2012 to 2014. Although Eric has had this book since he was 16, and he's a graduate age student. Eric was working on this project. He has some probably social issues. He's pretty hard on himself. He's been hospitalized probably for depression at some point. He had a falling out with the professor that was advising him, a guy named Moody. And Eric believes that Moody is trying to get more information on Straka to publish first his findings, to discover who Straka really was. There's a code in this book, in the footnotes of Ship of Theseus, because Cadera is this FX, Cadera, I think, is this person who we eventually find out is a woman that translated Straka's work, but never met Straka, and wrote a lot of footnotes. Now, they can't really find much information about her either. And there were all these other possible candidates for V.M. Straka that they're also trying to run down. So really what Eric and Jen are going back and forth on is trying to determine what the code is in the footnotes and what Cadero is trying to tell Straka, because there's all this cloak and dagger in the shadows kind of theme going on here, where some people died or were believed to have died or possibly met with their end in foul play, and they're trying to figure out what happened, who did what, why. There's generally accepted information out there, but they don't believe all of it. So this is their effort to really unearth the truth. While they're doing this, while they're kind of researching and bouncing ideas off of each other, they also learn more about each other. And you start to pick up that there may be feelings between Jen and Eric, even though at this point they still haven't met. I don't know if they ever meet, because I'm not, that may happen later. I don't know. But they start finding out about each other, and they talk about their personal lives and what Eric's gone through at the school and how Eric has to hide and really kind of disguise himself to access the archives at the school, at the college. Jen is providing Eric with updates on what's happening with Moody, the professor, and the teaching assistant who's working on her PhD, who Eric had a thing with, but it seems like she may have stabbed him in the back and stolen some of his material for this research. And that's where we are with it. As with Ship of Theseus, there's still a lot of questions that I have. Now, I have a couple of times while I've read the black and the blue ink, I've looked at other comments that were connected with those black and blue comments. Basically either Jen or Eric going back through the book again and then commenting on their old comments. And it's obvious with those new comments that there's more information they have. They know more at that point in the future. I just haven't gotten that far in the book yet to find out what that new knowledge is. And with this approach, with part 2 of the vlog, I am reading through the inserts as I get to them. So I don't know what order they're supposed to go in. I'm assuming some inserts are probably added later with later ink pairings, but I'm just, as I get to them and I'm reading the margins, I'm going to read the inserts too. And they are very cool. Like, they are detailed. There's smudging, there's different colors, there's points where the ink kind of seems like it's running out. It's really well done. It's very cool how much attention to detail there was in the construction of the book. I liked Ship of Theseus. I'm enjoying the comments in the margins because it is different. We're really going into the theory behind the real life story of the author and what happened in his life or her life. So even though we've read Ship of Theseus, it's not like Ship of Theseus is totally needed to get into this new stuff. You have to read some of the text that they're referring to, yes, but you're also, it's basically a new story, and that's been pretty cool. So I'm gonna keep reading it. At the beginning of each new ink color pairing, I will let you know where I am in it, basically when I start over. So I'm a little over halfway through the second read through, the first read through of the margin comments and the inserts, and that is for the blue cursive, black all caps. The blue cursive being Jen. She writes in cursive throughout, I believe. And the all caps is Eric. Their colors will change, but I think their handwriting is the same throughout. So I like it. It's very cool. It's a different experience. Last night I finished the black and blue margin comments, and I've moved on to what is called red and green, although it looks orange, so I think it's probably just a faded red. What I'm finding is there are certainly times in this book that I think I'm reading it out of order in the margins because they didn't write in order. The other thing is, through that first wave of comments in the margins, I read all the inserts. And probably all the inserts don't go with just the first round of comments. In fact, probably most of them don't. So I don't know if when I get to later color combinations in the margins, if that's going to show me where those inserts apply, because they didn't really apply to the first round of comments that I read. Having started the red and green comments, I do see some things that I've read in the first round that are going to be referred to in this latest round. There's also a chance that I've read some later comments from Eric, because the final color combination for comments is black and black, and the first set is black and blue. So Eric is using a black pen for the first round and the last round. If you're watching me on Goodreads, you probably have no idea what's going on, because I've gone from like 80% complete to 10%, worked my way back up to like 90-something%, and then back down to like 5%. I'm trying to keep track of where I am in the book. I'm not using a bookmark, so I'm using Goodreads to just keep track of my page. But I'm enjoying it. It's definitely an experience, and it does take some energy. It does take some planning, which is what I thought it was going to be. So that's why I've held off as long as I have. The other thing I don't know is the inserts, if they're on a page that actually applies to them, because if you've ever just stuck stuff in a book, you don't necessarily stick it in the book on a page that applies to whatever sometimes you're just throwing a piece of paper inside a book. So I don't know how that applies yet. I'm only a few pages into the red and the green. The blue and the black was I think front loaded in the book. There were a lot more blue and blacks at the beginning of the book, and by the end I was skipping a lot of pages. I think just from what I've seen, I think the black and the blue are probably the most frequent comments, so maybe it'll speed up, but I know there are a bunch of red and green coming too. I just think that they may be more like mid-book, and more of the purple and red are later. We're seeing the relationship change. The black and the blue was really establishing trust between Eric and Jen, them feeling each other out, figuring out what's true and what's not. They've both lied to each other. They've both kind of come clean. So we'll see if red and green is continuing that trust, but also moving more towards really digging into Straka and the translator, because I think that's where they're going. I don't know what's going to happen. There certainly things that I've kind of peeked at in other comments in the margins that suggest that something bigger is going to happen, that there's some kind of threat to them, and maybe their lives are at risk, but I don't know yet. I'm just so early into that part of it. But it's a cool, it definitely keeps you wanting to figure out what's going to happen. And I think just like Ship of Theseus, there's so many questions and there's so much kind of mystery, because even when you finished reading Ship of Theseus, you weren't sure what happened. And the character S in Ship of Theseus never really knows everything. He doesn't get that kind of finality. He doesn't get closure. Maybe that's going to be the theme for the whole book. I don't know. Because we don't really get the closure or the finality when we just read Ship of Theseus. And we definitely don't have closure and finality in the first round of margin comments, but there's still a lot left. It's getting interesting now. I'm on page 92, and I've seen a few references that something's happening, because in the green and red writing, at some point, Jen says she's scared. And I think Eric is too. And when I just read on page 90, Jen says, "The old barn burned while I was at home. I watched it from my window." Eric responds, "It's got nothing to do with us." Jen says, "We can't know that." Eric says, "You're right, but all we can do is be careful." Jen responds, "We could stop doing all of this." And Eric replies, "You could." One of the experts Eric is consulting just died in the book. His name's Desjardins. He was the advisor for Moody. Something's going on with Moody, because Eric doesn't trust Moody. Moody's trying to get all this information about Straka. Desjardins had information about Straka, had provided it to Eric and Jen, and then Desjardins fell to his death. And a lot of these characters, a lot of these people fall to their deaths. So I don't know if this is a cover-up, if this is some kind of retaliation against Desjardins, or what. But I think this is where some of the risk is added, some of the scarier parts, I guess, of the dialogue for Jen and Eric, or as they start to realize that maybe some of these killings that they thought were going on because of this S society, this S group, happened in the 40s and 30s, maybe it's still going on. And maybe that's what we're saying with Desjardins dying. And how is Moody related to this? I don't know. I finished the green and red section, and I feel like we were going more in the direction of Jen and Eric's personal relationship, but also we were kind of going down the road where Jen is more and more worried about her safety. There was a fire at her parents' farm. There was a fire at a motel. She thinks that Elsa, the teaching assistant for Moody, knows that she's working with Eric. And this is somebody who Eric believes is working against him with Moody. Eric's also gone to France. And I think he may have gone to Brazil. So it's just, we're heading in that direction. I did steal a glance at the next section, which is going to be purple and red. Purple for Jen, red for Eric. And it looks like something is going to get kind of crazy. I feel like the black and the blue really hit the first third of the book. It was throughout, but heavily first third of the book. And the green and red hit maybe the middle third of the book. And I think the purple and the red is probably going to be middle to end. Like heavily focused on the middle to the end. And then I think the black and the black, the last back and forth, is probably going to be much more heavily favored towards the end, but I don't know yet. I do think there's going to be a lot happening in the purple and red section, which is what I'm going to read next. I finished the purple and red comments, and I'm moving on to the black comments, but what's happened in the purple and red margin comments is that Eric and Jen have gotten closer. We kind of expected that. Jen's had some, I would say paranoid. I think there might be a reason for it, but she feels like people are following her. She feels like she's being targeted. There have been a couple fires. She feels like people have gone through her apartment. She's very uncomfortable, and Eric's trying to make her feel better. She's also worried about school and if she's going to be able to graduate. So Eric's also trying to tell her to just get focused, finish school, and you know where priorities should be. But he's also working with her on this project. They're uncovering more information. It looks like Eric's met with a few people that are involved with this, including Philomela, the translator. He visits her. She's like 100 years old in Europe, and he talked to her just about some of his thoughts. Apparently she was really nice. She confirmed a lot of the stuff they had been suspecting. She was very supportive. And where they're kind of going with it is they think, this is where I think this side story, the story inside the margins is. I think that there was a group of writers who were taking on an industrialist named Bouchard. And Bouchard is a character in Ship of Theseus, that not by that name, but basically all the bad guys in Ship of Theseus are based off of Bouchard. And this group of writers is exposing all the different bad things Bouchard's done. And at the same time, Bouchard's trying to find these writers and hunt them down, basically. So VM Straka, we're still not sure who VM Straka is, if it's a real person, if it's Vaclav, or if it's a made-up name, or if it's kind of a combination of multiple people. But it seems like he may have been saved by a guy named Ekstrom, I think that's his name, and it seems like right before Ekstrom died, he had a child. And basically what a number of these characters, these personalities are trying to do is protect that child and protect others from Bouchard's men. It really parallels what happened in Ship of Theseus with the agents and the detectives going after the S team, S and the other people from the ship and I guess from their organization. So in the purple and red notes, there are some revelations about who may have been involved. a few people died that they had been talking to. Jen's worked on her schoolwork and hopefully will pass and graduate. And Eric has confronted Moody and Ilsa, who are working on a book that basically states who Straka is and largely bases off of a recording that Eric had that was stolen, probably by Ilsa. And that's kind of where we are with it. There's, it has kind of gone in the order. The purple and the red ink really favored probably the latter third. Some of the middle, but the latter third of the book. And I think the black and black section is probably going to be towards the end. It's also going to be harder to pick out because there are probably times that I've read black thinking that it was the first black and blue, and it was actually later. We'll see what's going to happen here. I don't know. From the few times that I've kind of snuck little peeks at the black and the black, it seems like Jen and Eric are much further along and in relative peace, but I don't know. In this section, there was a lot more stress. Eric was trying to calm her down, but Jen was really worried because of a number of things. Her ex-boyfriend, Jacob, went to her family to say he thinks she's losing it and is under the influence of this crazy guy, old guy, who's Eric. Eric's not even 30, so I feel old there because he's an old, creepy guy. I'm 38. That makes me a really old, creepy guy. But I have one more section, the black and the black, and then I'll just kind of give, I think, a feel for what I thought of the entire book. But I'm enjoying it. It's an interesting, it's interesting to read the book and then see the side story, multiple side stories develop in the margins. Well, I finished the book. The last section was the black and black, which was the hardest to find because it didn't stand out. It's likely I read some of the black text before, thinking it was part of the black and blue section in the margins. And I think the black and black section was probably the least developed. It felt like it was kind of just cleaning everything up. It felt like Jen and Eric were looking back at some of this and just reflecting on what it was like and how their relationship had developed. When they're writing this section, they're together. I think they're in Europe probably, and I feel like they're still working on the Straka stuff, but they've also accepted that they're not going to have all the answers and they're not going to get all the closure. But they've done what they can and they'll continue to do it. They want to come out with a book that says that Vaclav is Straka, but they're still working on getting the proof for that. And they may not ever have all the proof, but they may. So that's what they're working on. And this is really just kind of a way to put a bow on it. Jen graduated. I think they left before the actual graduation ceremony, but she kind of turned things around. Eric finally confronted Moody and put into question what Moody was working on. It was kind of anticlimactic because I really thought there was going to be some murder at the end of this, and there may have been, but not with our characters, and we don't know if people were imagining it. Now there's Philomena, or however you say her name, in a letter she wrote, she talks about how not all the questions are going to be answered, and we have to be comfortable with there not always having an answer. There not always being closure. And I really think that, I mean, she was saying that to Jen and Eric, but it feels like that's also kind of a statement to us that we may not get all the closure. We may not ever, we don't find out if these people were actually being murdered. We don't find out if all these things that seem like they're connected to S are connected to S. We don't find out if Moody in some way is connected to S or an organization that works on exposing the new S writers. We don't have that. In the end, that final black and black margin discussion is really Jen and Eric being comfortable with their relationship and kind of settling down. And I mean, I think they're still working on stuff, but really taking time for themselves too. And being excited about their relationship in ways that they think that VM Straka was never able to be comfortable in a relationship, especially with Philomena or whatever her name is. So where they never had the opportunity to come together and be together, Jen and Eric are kind of righting that wrong. And Philomena is probably would be happy for them. She died. Natural causes. She was very old. But Eric comments, I think it was Eric, commented that she would have been happy for them. Like, this is what she wanted for them too. She wanted them to be a happy couple and probably have what she never had. But she talked about in a book with VM Straka. So that's what it was. That was, it wasn't swashbuckling danger. There wasn't murder. It didn't go off the rails. It really was probably more realistic as far as a discussion between two students who are just trying to find out more about an author, and how those students may have been picking up on something that was happening, or it may have been a little bit in their head. Maybe they were picturing things happening that weren't. They were just rare occurrences or just interesting timing, but it really wasn't as creepy or dangerous as they thought. But I don't know. And I think we're not supposed to know. We're just supposed to have this kind of doubt in our mind. Also, it sounds like Eric and Jen got the final pages of chapter 10 that Philomena never had. She never opened up an envelope that had those final pages. And they're happy that she didn't. They're happy that it wasn't used because it wasn't the right kind of ending. So I liked it. It was a good experience. It was an interesting experience, and I recommend doing it. It is going to take time. It is going to take some energy, but I think it's worth it. It's pretty cool. And the amount of work that went into preparing that book and making it this kind of experience is pretty amazing when you think about it. So thanks. Bye.
Smash the radio. No outside voices here. Smash the watch. Cannot tear the data shreds. Smash the camera. Cannot steal away the spirits. The rhythm is around me. The rhythm has control. The rhythm is inside me. The rhythm has my